In today's topic, I want us to talk about the lies that I have uncovered about African architecture. This topic is inspired with my journey, especially for the past 1 year, where I have immersed myself in this self discovery process of me trying to either gather new knowledge about African Indigenous architecture, trying to unlearn some of the things that have been taught to me, and trying to challenge myself to see the world of architecture from a new eye as an African. Now, this process has led me through so many journeys. And in this journey, I have uncovered some truths, but also some lies. If you're interested in this, stay tuned. When we talk about African architecture, let me ask this. What is the first thing that comes to mind? I guess maybe to many of you, similar to me, you might start to think about it not being durable, not being scalable, being associated with weakness. It's not valuable because when you try to look at property values, for instance, from what we call modern architecture, and you compare that with African traditional architecture, for some reason, African traditional architecture is valued less. And that is because some people look at it as being primitive, being associated with poverty, being associated with underdevelopment, and the third world. And it's not, being able to withstand different weathers. Now, let me preface this conversation by saying that African architecture is very diverse. It is not just concentrated on mud. And even with mud architecture, there are different types of ways that you can utilize mud to build homes. And for some reason, I just don't understand why African traditional architecture has continued to be valued less. Because it is somehow to say that we as Africans have lacked pride in the things that we have created, and that the only way we can find pride in the things that we now continue to build is by us tapping into what we call the modern culture that is heavily inspired and driven by the Western world and the Western ideals. Now, speaking of the lies that I have uncovered, I had to take a step back and ask myself, is this really true? Is it really true that African architecture is frankly associated with all these things? And I wanted to understand, where does this narrative of it being primitive, it not being associated with the wealth, and it being weak, where did this narrative really come from? So I took a step back as an African and I said, let me look at my people. Let me look and observe my African people. Now, this is just an example. This is a photo of a ruler from Cuba, the Cuba people from the Democratic Republic of Congo back in 1947. Now, as I was looking at this picture, I asked myself, how is it possible that someone can spend so much time adorning themselves and looking so sharp like this and not want to match that same energy and effort to their architecture? I just sat there and asked myself that simple question, and I was like, that just doesn't add up. The other thing that I also took time to reflect on is things like the artifacts, because the artifacts are things of historical value that tell a story about our people, right? These are stolen treasures. And it's a shame because close to 90% of those stolen artifacts currently lay in Western museums. And I sat with myself again and I asked myself, isn't that weirdly or interestingly convenient that these things that are called artifacts, instead of being back home, they are far away from us? Why? Okay, then I said, let's dig deeper and look at some of those artifacts. And I asked myself, if you look at this is just a simple axe. It's a tool that is used to do mundane tasks like splitting wood and everything. But yet you can see how intricate the design is on this. This is an ask from the Tanzanian people. You can see people put so much effort to decorate it and make it look good. The other thing that I looked at is things like the dogon door. A door is associated with a home, obviously. So I asked myself, why would people take time to create such a beautiful door, but not take time to create a beautiful home? Oh my God, these things were not adding up. Are you guys seeing where I'm going with this? I also looked at something as simple as a stool, because in the quote unquote modern day world and modern day culture, people adorn their homes with different, people had these fancy interior design decorators and stuff like that. And they import this furniture from XYZ as a status as a symbol of wealth or something like that. But for us as Africans, we took time to actually create. And this is a simple stool from the Ashanti people back in 1817 from the Ghanaian people. And I looked at this and I told myself, oh my God, how is it that someone would want to create such an intricate stool for themselves, for their home, and then neglect their home? Not create anything to match this level of beauty and stature. That just didn't add up for me. It just didn't add up. It just didn't make any sense. And then the other thing that I did is that as I have been doing a lot of research, I've had to read a lot about like historical ruins or sites that now show the evidence of our existence and how we used to live. And I looked at the Hami ruins. I think they're called the Hami ruins. People, if we know anybody from Zimbabwe, let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So especially if you go to UNESCO and you search Hami ruins, it says the property was the capital of Torwa dynasty, which arose from the collapse of the Great Zimbabwe Kingdom between 1450 to 1650 and was abandoned during the Ndebele incursion of the 19th century. Think about that. 1450 to 1650. This is way back. Now, if you look at the Hami ruins themselves, look at this. This structure is still there until today. Since the 1400s until today. And this is made out of stone. This is not made out of mud. So this told me there is so much diversity. There was so much diversity in the type of architecture that we built. And there was so much beauty in the type of architecture that we built. There was so much pride. And it's not that this architecture was not durable. If a ruin like this can stand until today, it tells you how strong this place was. It's just that it was destroyed. So these are the remains of it. So I started to think about this, and I started to think about architectural buildings like the Dingurai Mosque in Guinea. And when I started to go into Guinea, I saw these incredible architectural designs from different parts of Guinea. I saw the Casa Palabre in Dabala, Guinea. I mean, let me show you this. Look at the floor. Look at the walls. Somebody tell me that somebody did not have pride in creating this. If someone were to create a building like this today, and then they were to put it up in the market, do you know how much this would be valued? So who then came up with this narrative that African architecture is primitive, that African architecture is not great, it is weak? There's a complete disconnect in the way the people live, in the people carry themselves, and us being told that we were not great, that we did not create beautiful architecture. It's a complete lie. And there's been a lot of erasure excuse me, there's been a lot of erasure of this information. And I think it's for good reason. It is meant for us to continue to believe that we did not have a good civilization, and we did not know how to create sturdy, good, valuable, wealthy architecture. And so when there is a gap, obviously you need somebody to come in and guide you on how to build strong architecture, how to build beautiful, valuable architecture, right? And who else is going to do that? Guess what? The quote unquote first world countries, quote unquote, the people who colonized us in the past. Isn't that interestingly convenient? Interesting. Now, I came across this picture of Wayland students building, quote unquote, to what is referred to as authentic African mud hut. And I was like, interesting. This is what many of us think we as Africans are in terms of our indigenous traditional architecture. This is what many of us think we are. We are more than this, guys. There is a lie that has been perpetuated, and there is a lot of information that has been destroyed, but it is never too late for us to start turning the clock, to start going back to culture, to start uncovering the lies, and to start walking in the old ways and going back using that indigenous knowledge to improve the quality of our life today. Because I tell you for free, unless or until we get to the point where we create our own things, we will always be looking out for somebody else to come and help us out figure our own life. And as long as you're depending on someone else, you're not truly independent, you're not truly free. And what does that mean? We are not truly done with this colonialism thing. We need to completely make a shift in the mindset. And I know that is the hardest thing to do, because all along, all we have known is that the way we are living right now, the modern way, us importing all these building materials, is the way to do it. It is the way to bring prestige, to bring honor, to brag to your friends that you have built a home. But what if I dared to challenge you to look at things differently? What if you did not have to import and you created your own industry or your own company that was able to create mud tiles for your community? What if I challenged you to go back to the village and seek out indigenous traditional ways to build your home and work with an architect to build a really beautiful home that honors your culture, your tribe, your people, your lineage, your ancestors? What would that do? What if you start to change the narrative? What if Africans, we got to a point where we all did this and we never needed to import anything from anyone other than depend on ourselves to support each other? How would the world look like for us? Interesting. There are some lies in there, and those lies are conveniently meant to keep us from the truth, because the truth is not profitable to some people, but the truth is profitable to us. So I challenge you to try and look at things differently. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to say, oh, you should do this and do that. You have your own choice, but I dare you and I challenge you to try and look at things from a different perspective. Let me know in the comment sections what you guys think. But this is what I have uncovered. This is my experience, and it's been quite a very interesting one, to be honest. So until next time, cheers, guys.